Hello, welcome. I'm going to do some retouching. I believe you can ask questions. I'm going to talk through it. This is what I do when I retouch. I'm actually going to use the same picture as I did last time. And the first thing I'm going to do is open it in Camera Raw. And let's see what it looks like. And now what happened there? Okay, all right. This is the first time we're doing this with the Pterodact Wave, and we're kind of excited about this. But you know, not being the most technical of technicals, then I'm not exactly sure. All right. So this is us, and this is how this image looks, pretty much directly out the camera. I'm going to go into Camera Raw. And then I'm going to show you how I would start kind of getting this ready to retouch. So first thing I'm going to do is look at the exposure. And I think I could be a little darker. So that's looking about right to me. And then I'm not going to use this contrast here, and I'll show you why in a second. But the next thing I'm going to do is bring my highlights down a little bit. Now this might seem counterintuitive what I'm going to do, but this is how I do it. I'm going to bring my highlights down so I have nothing incredibly glary here. And the next thing I'm going to do is bring my shadows up and try and bring a little detail up in the hair. The more detail we have, the more detail we have to work with. Now some people might not like that because sometimes that gives you more retouching work, but for me, the better the final image. So that looks pretty good. I'm not going to mess with these blacks and whites. I'm not going to mess with texture, clarity, or dehaze. Now saturation, I'm going to show you why I'm not going to touch that at the moment. So instead of doing a regular contrast slider here, which I can easily do, I'm actually going to do it in a little bit of a curve fashion, which is underneath here. And there's some presets if you go into point curve, and one of the presets is medium contrast or strong contrast or custom. You know, honestly, medium contrast to me looks pretty good, and that to me gives me a little more control than just the slider, and I can go in really subtly and change a couple of things there, and that just gives me a little more control over the slider. Now obviously there's something super important that I forgot to mention, which I'm going to mention. My profile is set for Adobe Standard. Now if you have a particular camera brand that you use, then you may have a profile. And I'll just show you, I think Adobe Color is too rich. Landscape is obviously for landscape. Portrait is not bad, I'm not mad at portrait. Standard just flattens it out a little bit more, because I would prefer to actually do more of my color in Photoshop rather than in Camera Raw. So this is looking not bad. Now when I do that, obviously increasing contrast increases saturation. So I may want to bring my saturation just down a little bit. And then the other slider which I do use is vibrance. And I think the vibrance slider, from what I understand, somebody could please tell me if I'm wrong, the vibrance slider just brings a little more saturation into what it perceives as skin tones. So yeah, obviously we go to there, and I'm not talking much, I'm talking like 4 or 5 points. And now after I've added the contrast, I can see my exposure is still a little bit high. So I'm just going to go down a little more, and I'm going to open up these shadows a little more to keep the detail in the hair. I'm going to look at temperature and tint now. This is how it was in camera. I think I'm just going to warm it up a little bit. You can see that warming up tiny little bit there, obviously too much. Just going to get a little warmth back into the skin there. Tint, usually don't work with both at the same time. So I'm just going to leave the tint at 0. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to take a little magenta, red out the tint. Just bring it back to the greens a tiny little bit. Alright, so that to me is an image that's ready to go. You can use all the other sliders, whatever you like. I'm showing you how I would do this image. And that's what I would do. And now I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to open that same image up in Adobe, in Photoshop. And now it's open in Photoshop. And I'm just going to go in a little bit and see how we're doing. Obviously it's a Mark Man image, so nothing is particularly sharp where it should be. I'm not sure if that's not sharpness or if it's movement. Let's see if there's anywhere pin sharp. No, I have misfocused, probably because of movement. Now, Brianna, who we photographed, has beautiful skin, but this ring light is pretty vicious. It's not very soft, and it has left a lot of things on her skin that I'm sure she would not be happy about. So we're going to fix that all. Next thing we're going to do is run a little action, which I've set up, which is called my image prep action. I don't know if you can see that running in the left there. It gives me some layers for Liquify, cloning, soft light, curves. Nothing changes on the image, but it sets me up to do my retouching. I think we have a video, Jake, right, showing that action?
Yep.
Okay, so we will put that up at some point if you want to download this action. All right, the first thing I'm going to start looking at are some of these big issues that I see in here, some of these lines, some of this stuff here. I'm just going to try and smooth out her skin. And this, my friends, takes a little bit of time the way I do it. But let's start. So the first brush I'm going to use is the healing brush. And I'm going to keep it on the normal mode. I know that you're asking what this tool is I'm using. It's called the loop deck. I have a load of things set up on that as well. I think we have a video about that too. But this is my loop deck. This is a Wacom tablet, and these are the tools that I use. So I'm just going to start off by doing a little fixing here. I'm on my cloning layer, and you know, it's all trial and error. So, you know, keep my brush pretty small and start fixing some of these areas here, or at least doing an initial fix on them. Try not to take out too much. You know, going in and out to see how things look. I can still see a little bit of that in here. Let's try and fix that a little bit. Jake, anything going on in control panel?
Control panel?
Well, you're the control guy.
Oh no, everything's good.
Obviously Jacob is here running the show, so if you have any questions, just hit him up. So beginning to start taking these bits out. It's really hard to do while talking at the same time, but I'm going to try keep going here. As I say, a small brush, and I'm not trying to take out too much. Just trying to work a little bit on the big stuff that you can see here. Anybody who's watched any of my retouching before will know that I have like a way to kind of work on the skin afterwards using soft light. But I find the more preparation you do before the soft light, then the better it is. So this is kind of a big area here. Let's try it. Not bad. I can come back in there and start hitting these other areas with a brush. And you know, it's time and patience, unfortunately. I'd love somebody to show me how to retouch quicker, but anytime I try and kind of rush it or do things faster, I'm never as happy with the result. So yeah, so these are some of the big things I'm going to take out. I don't know why I always start in the forehead, but I do. I'm not sure why that is. But I'm not going to go too far, folks. We can still see some problems that are still in here. So I'm going to try and go in here again. what I'm going to do is change to my cloning tool at 30% instead of the healing brush, and see if I can just maybe clone from up here at 30% and see if that helps a little with that area. Not particularly, but let's keep going. All right, the other things I always work on, the other problems I always work on with the healing brush is some of this hairline here, and it really depends how you want to go. I think a good way to do this is to go from normal to lighten, because all these hairs are darker, and if I just literally paint over them, then I can start to get rid of some of these dark hairs here. Everything you're seeing now is kind of stage 1, and it's just preparation work for my main way of retouching, which is using soft light. And just go over into these hairs. And listen, also, it's not a case of for me, it's not a case of getting rid of absolutely everything and making everything look perfect, but for this particular shot, I really want to fix the crappy light I did on Brianna so we can make her look really good. I want to say hi to my mom if she's watching. Mom! You there? So you can really make a decision about how much you want to take out here, how far up into this hairline you're going to go. That was probably, well, maybe it's not too much. But I'm going to turn this on and off in a minute. And you'll see that, like, a super quick way of just getting rid of that mess that's there. As I say, it's not about perfection. I really want to keep like a semblance of reality to the picture, even though by the time I'm finished I hope it has kind of like a painterly feel, because that's kind of what I go for, but not like just destroying everything that's original pixels. That's not bad. Oops, slipping a bit. Okay. It's weird because I really feel like I should rush because you're watching, but I don't want to. In the spirit of full disclosure, you see, I don't know if you can see this on the screen here, but my Photoshop tools are all on a second monitor here, and you can see a big black space here. And that is because I'm usually running some kind of YouTube or Netflix or something and kind of half watching it while I'm retouching. So I'm kind of missing that, but we'll survive. All right, I actually think that is just about enough for the forehead. Let's go back to normal brush, normal healing brush. Starts hitting a couple of these highlights a little bit, even with just squiggly lines, just trying to break up some of that texture that looks a little strange. Okay, let's go in here. Eyelashes are really good, so there's not a lot to do there. Maybe just take out a couple of rogues. It's the advantage of not shooting pin sharp, because you can, everything's a little easier to work on when it's slightly blurry. As I say, this is kind of stage 1 of stage 2 of 2 main stages of retouching. And as I say, I'm just trying to break up some of that texture there that might not look perfect. I'm not sure what the color looks like on the screen here, but color feels quite nice on the image. So here's another little area which I think could do with some attention before I move on, and once again I'm just trying to break it up a little bit and make it easier to do the second stage on. I'm really going more for kind of problems with texture rather than problems with you know, color at the moment, because even though I don't often use frequency separation, I kind of work on a similar principle. So I'm gonna like working on texture at the moment with this brush, and then I'm gonna just work on pretty much color and shadow on the second version. I can spend like 3 hours doing this and then look back and going, why don't I see any difference? That's okay, because if I don't do it, I certainly see the difference on the final thing. So a lot of squiggles. One thing I love about using this Wacom tablet is, if you can see, I can use my thumb here to just change the brush size, which is really nice instead of having to put a hand on a keyboard or something.
Loop deck, not Wacom.
Yeah, loop deck, not Wacom. See? I didn't think he was listening either. Jacob, how was your weekend, buddy?
It was pretty good.
What'd you do?
I watched all of Wednesday.
What'd you think?
I thought it was really good.
It was good, right? So I'm going to change back over to my cloning tool here, because I don't want to get rid of this completely, but I definitely want to soften that up. And you know, for everybody knows that it's just makeup, and that's how makeup sits sometimes. I'm going to opacity it maybe 30%, and I'm just going to clone it a little bit from underneath and just kind of paint it in. And as I say, I'm not trying to get rid of it all. I'm just trying to break it up and make it look a little gentler, softer. Did that do anything? So weird. Yeah, there you go. Just looks a little softer. Same thing I'm going to do with these under eye lines. I don't want to take them out, but I just want to maybe soften them up a bit. I'm at 30% here. Don't know if that's enough. Let's do 40%. There we go. Once again, just kind of softening it and breaking it up rather than trying to do something monumental. Down into the mouth area, it looks pretty good. There's a couple of little bits and pieces here I'm going to go back to my healing brush with. And just kind of, once again, cover them or break them up, and it's just going to be easier for stage 2. Just this little area under the nose here, I know is going to be some work afterwards. But, onto the chin, my favorite area. Chins can always get weird, especially if you're using light that comes from above. Because if you are, but usually by the time the light hits the chin and it's an angle from above, you're casting more shadow, and that's why, you know, often we use a full card. Now we used a ring light here, so in theory the light should be even across the face, but I just find that chins are kind of always seem to show up more abnormalities is the wrong word. What's the word? Things that shouldn't be there. Potentially like me today. But as I say, I'm not going to go too far. I'm just literally trying to break things up here a little bit. Little spot on the cheek there. More on the under eye. Now, is that a beauty mark or... Yeah, I think that's a beauty mark. I think I gotta leave that. We'll see as we get a little further. Let's say not too worried about color at the moment. I'm just more worried about texture, making sure the texture's in a good place. So I did a pretty bad job here, so let's just go in and work a little more. Are you laughing at me, Jacob, over there?
Slightly.
It's not unusual.
I'm trying to type on a mechanical keyboard quietly, and it's not working.
I don't know if you heard that, but he's trying to type on a mechanical keyboard quietly and it's not working. Jake, did you watch White Lotus?
I told you, I watched the first episode of the second season.
Yeah.
So no.
Why don't you watch the first episode of the first season?
Maybe that will be on my list.
So I get all these, oh yeah, you should watch it when you're on vacation at the beach. So I got these keys set up on my loop deck. If I want to zoom in, it's 3, 2, which I press together and then slide in and out. If I want to move my picture around, it's just 3 by itself. And these are pretty close to the commands that I have on a keyboard. But as you'll see in a second, there's a couple of reasons that the loop deck for me really is better for this than just trying to use the keyboard. Alright, how are we doing? Alright, so I'm going to turn this on and off and let's see if we see any difference. You know, it's not ginormous, but you can see some of the areas definitely that we've healed a little bit and made it easier for stage 2. How far you go with this is really up to you. Honestly, because I'm trying to keep this a little bit natural, I think I've gone a little, just about far enough here. Which is very good. Alright, so, oops, didn't mean to do that. Alright, so then we're going to now go into soft light. Just check the neck here. Yeah, we're going to go into soft light. And this is pretty much my key to retouching. We got an episode on that, Jake?
Soft light?
Yeah.
No.
Huh. I think we do, buddy. It's in one of my retouching tutorials. I really don't want to start going into the process of how to do that today, how to make it, but there's an action and stuff, I'm sure.
I put a link in the chat for all our actions. The frequency separation and the full retouching.
Okay, so in the full retouching, you can work out how to do this. I'm basically going to go into it. I'll tell you what's happening here, but I'm not going to go into how to make it because it's in somewhere else. I've turned on a couple of layers here, which are called turn off when finished. Now what these layers do is they basically, first of all, completely desaturate the image. And then the top layer here is a curves layer. And why can't I see my curves? This is really important. Okay, here we go. There we go. So you can see, Jake, can we see the tool palette here?
The tool palette, no.
Can you see it on this camera?
Not really.
Not really. All right, you're going to have to watch the tutorial. But basically I've made a curve here. And it's a pretty steep curve. And if I take this bottom point and start opening it up, we can see the image showing itself slowly but surely. But what we can also see is the imperfections in the skin, tone-wise, a lot clearer. Like if you look at these little bits and pieces in here, yeah, you can see them in color. But when I put it in this like black and white mode, you can really see the imperfections a lot easier. And the reason I'm going to work in black and white like this is because it's easier to fix. So I'm going to start pretty deep into this curve here, and then if I just zoom in a little bit here, you're going to be able to see some of these imperfections I'm going to try and fix. And I'm not going to try and do it at pixel level. I'm going to try and stay a little further out, because pixel level will drive you mad. Alright, so I'm going to take a brush tool, and it's going to be at 3%. And then I'm just going to start painting on this pre-made soft light layer that I have at 3%. Actually, let's start 100%. If I go 100% here and start painting 100%, you can see what it does. It's lightening everything by way too much, but it's keeping texture. It's not really messing with texture too much. Obviously, we're not going to do 100%. I would like to undo that. There we go. So what I'm going to set it is at 3%. So that's why I love a loop deck, because I got that little 3%, 4% set up for me. And I'm not going to go to pixel level. I'm going to have a very small brush here, and I'm going to keep my hardness at 0. I want a soft brush. So my hardness is at 0, and we are at 3%. I'm just going to start tapping these areas. It's literally, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's like a tap, tap, tap with some movement. And I'm going to start looking at these dark areas, and because my brush is set to a light color, or light or white, then these areas are going to lighten up. I'm going to do this little bit for a few minutes, and as you see, I'm just hitting these heavy shadows. I'm tapping away at them. Whoops, don't want to do that. And this is trying to just even out the tones on the skin. And I can change my brush size super quick with this dial here, which makes everything a lot quicker for me. So now
just hold the deck up to the camera so they can see what you're talking about.
Look, deck.
Cool. Thank you.
I bet it doesn't work now that I've moved it, Jake. Only likes to work in one specific spot. So super quick, if I turn this on and off, first of all turn the color on, the black and white curves on and off, and if I just, you can see, Jake, can you see that? I hope you can, right in between the eyebrows.
Do it again.
I'm just turning it on and off, so you should be able to see, like, really quickly, if I zoom back out a little bit, how that little area of in between the eyes is kind of getting softer, so evened out. So I'll go back in and I'll keep going, and then we'll do a little bit more of the forehead, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, it's tempting to go overboard here and try and make everything exactly the same, but then you're just going to get a flat image. So you're really looking at trying to, if something is in the middle of something else and it's obviously shouldn't be there, like this little guy, you can take it out just by tapping away at it. And then the thing not to forget, which is really important, is at the moment I'm taking away, but I also might want to add, if I zoom in a little bit, see this white line here? If I wanted to add, I'm going to press a button which presses X, so that's going to give me my dark tone, and then I can just add some dark in. So working with the dark and light, you can really even out what's going on. And once again, folks, it's not a particularly fast process. I find it incredibly therapeutic and love doing it. So sometimes my favorite thing to do on an image is just to soft light it and just get into a little zone and start working here. if you hate doing this and you hate this kind of repetitive, slow thing, then this might not be the way for you guys to go. But I find, as I say, I find it very, very therapeutic. I'm with the darkening brush at the moment. I'm just trying to darken down a little bit of these highlights without killing them. Switch back to the light brush, hit some of these really dark spots, lighten them up a little bit. That's how it's gonna go. So Brianna, who we're retouching, is a really talented jazz singer who I photographed. And I feel pretty bad about it because she has really lovely skin. But when you kind of get into this this detail, well, it starts looking weird. Tappa, 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 tappa. Alright, so let's see what this looks like. We'll turn it off, we'll turn it back on, and you can really see we fixed that whole area. We haven't, if you go in like to deep pixel level, you see we still have all the texture, but if we come out to like 100%, let's view it 100%. 100%, you can see we've really fixed that, and all the other pieces that are wrong are beginning to stand out. So we're gonna have to go a little further here, obviously a little further, and we'll get into how to do that in 1 second. Any questions, Jake?
No, not yet. There are 9 people on that.
There's usually definitely music playing or a video playing because I'm so not used to hear this tapping sound from my Wacom tablet. Right? Tappa, tappa, tappa. But gentle. If you have a Wacom tablet, I don't know how you set it up, but I set mine up with absolutely no pen pressure. For Photoshop, I think if you're drawing or painting, then that's a whole different story, but I find that having pen pressure in Photoshop just makes it too random because you never know the same pressure. This without the pen pressure, just with the opacity setting and the hardness setting, every time I tap, I know I'm doing the same thing. So I find that a lot easier to work with than having the pen pressure on. Just a thought for the day.
We can probably put some music on if you want.
Well, you can if you like. I'm gonna press X. I'm gonna go in, just darken some of these areas down a little bit. The other thing you got to do is check your work pretty often. I'm probably not checking it as much as you maybe should be doing if you're first starting, as after like 20 years of this, have a fair idea of what's happening, but it's always really good to just check and make sure you've not gone too far or where you need to do more. So I'm just going to do that again. Now if I keep this in black and white for a second like this and just turn on my soft light, let's zoom in a little bit here. So that is what the original image it looked like before I started. And that is with the soft light, and that transcribes or transfers to that. And I'm not sure how long that's taken, but I think that looks pretty good. So let's go back in to the with the curves on. Oh my god, I don't know what music he's just put on. Is that Billy Joel?
No, Bowie.
Oh, okay. Wow, sorry guys. It's David Bowie Joel. So I've moved on to the cheek. There's not really that much to do at this area. If that music's bothering anyone, tell me. I mean, I love it. But... And I'm only working on the areas I can see. I'm not trying to make up what I should be doing, because when I open up that tone curve in a few minutes, it will show me much more areas to work on. I'm not going to touch the nose, and even I can't even see the chin yet, or the lips, so I'm not going there. But I could probably come in here a little bit, just start taking some of this out, evening it out, smoothing it out. I don't know, I always seem to move around the image in a weird way. That's just how it works. But I think, you know, if you keep on moving, do an area, keep on moving, go back to it, you see it slightly differently. So I think moving around is a good idea. All right, that's a pretty good start here on that. So I'm going to go back to my tone curve here, and this is in that other tutorial. I'm just going to open it up a little bit. And all that's doing is showing me a little bit more of the mid-tones here, and that's exposing more of the, you know, the tone differentials, which it shows me I'm ready to fix. So go back to the forehead, and we can see that this needs fix and all this needs fix. So I'm just going to go back to my soft light, back to my brush at 3%, and start working on that. Once again, you're not trying to get everything 100%, because then it's going to look plastic, and that is not what you want. I'm going to switch to darken here, so little bits that need to... What was that? That was a really weird version of Modern Love.
It was
It's a playlist.
some remix.
What?
Some remix.
Yeah, we don't have... Do we do remixes?
David Bowie's 75 official playlist.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. It's weird how this often happens. This to me kind of feels a little bit like being in the darkroom again. When, you know, you were dodging and burning. That's basically what you're doing here. You're dodging and burning, but at a much deeper level than you would be able to do in the darkroom. I suppose maybe Ansel Adams had some technique for this, but I don't really. So it's beginning to smooth out a bit. Don't be scared sometimes of like opening your brush up to bigger size and like, oh, okay, let's see if I can just do this all at one level. Now if I went into pixel level here, this stuff would start driving me nuts. And don't get me wrong, I've done it, you know, like fixing everything almost literally at pixel level. But it takes a long time, and it's going to drive you crazy. Alrighty. So just moving up into the hairline. I was talking to somebody the other day who's a retoucher, a little younger than me, and we were talking about techniques, and he wanted, you know, he was asking me about my technique, and I told him about it, and he's a very proficient retoucher, and he said, "Wow, you retouch old style, like you're close to airbrushing here." "Oh, what do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, we, you know, as youngsters, and yeah, you know, don't work like that so much anymore." And I was like, "Well, what happens if you're doing like print or billboard?" He's like, "Yeah, we don't do that anymore." So you know, it made me think a lot about, you know, I'm using a computer here and I'm retouching, but I'm doing it in an old way, which is kind of interesting. But he very much admitted that if he had to send something like as a magazine cover to print, or as a billboard, or as to making prints for people, then although he can get to where I get to a lot quicker, it doesn't hold up much bigger than maybe, you know, an iPad screen, and then it starts falling to bits. So this is retouching for certainly for web, as it looks beautiful, but also if somebody wanted to make a 30 by 40 print of this, then, you know, that's what I'm aiming for, or a billboard, or, you know, like the magazine cover that's going to have a lot of scrutiny. Alright, so let's zoom in. We see we're really beginning to smooth that forehead out. I'm wondering if I've gone too far because I've been talking and not looking. Let's check it out. Okay, so there we go. So that is where we were without the soft light, and that is the soft light. I don't think we've gone too far. I think that looks pretty good. So my whole retouching on the forehead, if you want to see, that was before we started, and that's now the retouching on the forehead. And I just do want to say that we totally have kept a lot of the texture and a lot of stuff. Oh no, I'm getting a text from my wife. All right, we're in good shape. Okay, let's carry on. Turn on my black and white again. And then we can see this area here. Okay, this is an interesting area on faces, as there is definitely some shadow here, but I think we want to soften it a bit. I certainly don't want to go as far as making it the same as that tone, so I think I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger brush. I mean, not that much bigger. Oops, what did I just do? Let's press undo there. There we go. Master opacity change, alright. And then I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger brush. I'm going to stay at my 3% because that seems like it's working. I'm just going to hit this a little bit, and instead of getting rid of it, just lighten it a little bit and just blend it so it like blends a little better. Same as just a little up here. I'm just going to work on this nose, try and lighten these. Let's see how that looks. Alright, so guys, you know the first mistake I just made there? I just used the spot healing brush instead of my regular brush to do that. Let's see how much I messed it up. I don't think it will. Let's see, turn it off. Yeah, it did nothing. Alright, sorry. Go back to my the regular brush. Wow. That's because I'm talking. Turn that on. Go to B. 3%. Alright, let's do that once more. Try and soften up some of these harsher, darker tones, and just even this out a little more. It was funny, the only reason I did that is because I was going so hard with the spot healing brush that my computer started to lag a little bit, which it never really does, so I knew something was going on that was weird. That's better. You can see here in this, in the nose, I don't want perfection, but I don't want these big changes in contrast. I want to just try and make it a little more even. When I use a ring light, I often get this kind of ring that appears on people's nose. It's just the way I think your nose is shaped, and also the oil on your nose. It's not particularly flattering, and I'm just going to use a little soft light to try and get rid of it. If I can't get rid of it as much as I want to, then I'll show you another technique to get rid of that if you... Oh, we paused? Am I back on?
Yeah.
Alright, so we'd take our negatives, they're like 6x6 negatives, and you would kind of find the area. You kind of rub your nose on it and then try and fill in that little crease. I don't know. I was saying again, back in the darkroom days, when we were working with negatives, sometimes you would have like a scratch or something on your negative. And you could soften the scratch on your negative by rubbing a little bit of grease into it. And apparently, according to my tutor back then, and I'm not the only person to have ever said this, so there's something real in it. If you just like find the area in your negative and just tapped it on your nose, you could sometimes fill in the little crease. The fill in the little scratch or whatever it is, make it a little softer. Alright, so let's go back and just remember to look at what we're doing here. So if we turn that off, you see the problem? I can. So you see all this mess I've made here? That was because I used the spot healing brush. I'm such an idiot. How am I going to fix this quickly? Well, I have no real way to fix it. I can't go back in history far enough because I've been tapping 1,000 times. I'm literally going to do what I tell people never to do and use the eraser tool, and I'm just going to take out all that I did. Not the forehead, but anything below it. I'm going to do that again. I have no other way of fixing that. That was a genuine error. Alright, back to where we were. Okay, back to black and white. Soft light. 3. I'd like to say professionals make mistakes as well, but that would suggest that there's a professional in the house. You're supposed to giggle, Jake. Go, ha ha ha! Thank you. Alright, so let's just do that again. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, go back to my brush. 0.3%. Wow. Nerves! And you're just going to do that again with a little bit of a bigger brush, like I did before. Now quickly go back down through the nose, getting rid of some of these, blending some of these differences in tones. I'm just gonna go press when I press X, or if I press X, I go to my darker paint, and I just paint on soft light a little darker, and that helps blend as well. It's often easy to forget that you have to paint with dark and light, but you do. So most of the time what you're doing is trying to take away, but sometimes you have to add. So this little area here, we're going to do the same thing. Really curious if anybody has any questions, including you, Jacob.
My question is, what do you want for lunch?
So Jacob has asked what we want for lunch. Well, that means that we're having lunch. You know what? I think I'm alright. I'm going to eat after, but thank you very much. You know what I'd love though?
Diet Coke.
Yeah, which we don't have. Do you know what I'd love you? You know, I'm going to reach behind me and get a water in a second. How was everybody's Thanksgiving? You know, as a immigrant to this country, I love Thanksgiving for all the reasons that we love Thanksgiving, to, you know, spend time with family and have a couple of days off and eat well and you know, be thankful for the things that we're thankful for. I think that's all great. But when we get into kind of the story behind it, as an immigrant, I'm still confused. A little bit.
I think most Americans are confused.
Yeah, I don't want to get too technical. But you know, it's getting to this age for me, Jake, where I have an 8-year-old and he's asking some questions, and you know, I feel bad constantly saying, well, maybe we should talk to Mummy about that one. I'm an immigrant. We might have to talk to a citizen that's born in America. But yeah.
But you're an American now.
I certainly am an American, but I cannot be president. I cannot be president because I was not born in America.
Well, that's not the only reason.
Why else can I be president?
I don't think we'd get the votes.
Alright, I wouldn't get the votes, but I have no felonies.
That's good.
Alright folks, I'm talking rubbish at the same time here because I seem to be able to focus better when I'm not talking about what I'm focusing on. But let's go back now. Even if we just stay with this black and white image and we turn our retouching on and off, you can see how much we've managed to fix. Once again, stressing that we're keeping texture and we're not destroying the texture, or what I would call the integrity of the image. So let's go back to here. If it's easier to see big or small. Oh, sorry, wrong button. But we're really beginning to be able to shape the face, not shape the face, but even out the skin tones. Now, something which is glaring here to me is this on the underside of the cheek here. And we should be able to fix it just by, as I say, blending this area. Not trying to make it as light all the way up or dark all the way down, but just blending it and softening this. And we're just going to use that same technique. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to use a dark brush and just blend down a little bit. So I go to my X here and I start painting a little darker in here. Now I think I might have to go in a little more detailed because I'm starting to darken above it, which is not what I want to do. So I'm just going to go back in here with my light brush a little closer and start taking some of this out. You know, there's always fixes for things afterwards, but this is maybe somewhere I should have spent a little more time before I started self-lighting, because I kind of knew it was going to happen. But there's, you know, there's a billion ways to do stuff in Photoshop, and it's really important to be non-destructive. So to be able to go back or work over things. So I think that looks a little better. Yeah. So if I turn that, you can see that that area is looking a little better now. It's looking a little blended and shadows aren't so heavy, but let's keep going. What do we got? Alright, so here is basically, well, you know what, I don't rush for it. I'm going to go in and fix these eyes a little more. Jacob.
Yeah.
Is it true if I say water appear in my hands that it works?
Sometimes.
Let's check that out.
You say the magic word.
The magic words is obviously, please, favorite cousin in the world, can I have a bottle of water? Thank you very much. Wow! So folks, that's an hour in, and I would say I'm probably about at least halfway there. It probably doesn't sound that exciting to you guys to think that, you know, retouching an image might take a couple of hours, but you know, it's the way I learn and it's just the way I do it, and I can't seem to get too much faster at it without kind of half-assing it. But let's see how long. I think actually we might be more than halfway. All right, so I'm gonna start working in on these, on the difference in tones on the lip here. Let me see, there's quite a big area here. You know, I think one of the things that I used to do a lot, which I still do, is completely over retouch things, and then end up having to pull back my retouching. And I'm going to show you how to do that. If you feel you've over retouched it, there's some certain ways to pull it back a little bit and make it a little more natural. So I might not be too concerned about over retouching, because you can certainly, you know, fix that a little bit. Oh, that lip, really nice. Really looks a lot better. Start hitting around here. Just the tapping. And just, you know, as I say, not taking everything out, but just blending. And then remembering that if you're left after you've done an area with some light areas, is just go back in with your dark brush or your dark paintbrush that you've set up, and you know, hit these areas and just kind of blend it out a little bit. All right, so that's that kind of upper lip done a little bit. I'm not going to start on that cheek, I'm just going to keep going a little more in here. What can I tell you?
What's that white dot?
This white dot here?
Yeah.
You don't know? Give you a guess.
Oh, is that a nose ring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nose ring. You know, actually, did Brianna ask me to take that out? Can you remember? All right, so I'm remembering now that Brianna does not want that nose ring, so we're going to take that out as well. And I'll show you what's interesting about having to do that in a second. Let's get all the soft light done. Jake, should I be rushing or can I take my time?
Take your time. I'm here all day.
You here all day? What are you gonna have for lunch, cuz?
I haven't decided.
Oh, interesting.
I'm having Italian for dinner.
How do you know?
Because I have a date.
You have a date?
Yeah.
Who with?
A girl.
So, I try and live very vicariously through my cousin Jacob's love life, as although incredibly happily married, it's really interesting to talk to somebody who is not, and still has the joys of youth. Who was it that said the youth is wasted on the young? But anyway, so the most information I will ever get is I have a date.
No, you'll get a name.
I will get a name.
Not on a live stream.
Sometimes I get to know which restaurant he's going to, rarely, because I really believe that he thinks I'm going to show up. That's how nervous I've made him. Sad. I'd never show up, would I, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose I could dress up as Santa Claus.
That would be funny.
This is also such a, to me, like always a weird area of the face. I've talked about the chin before, but I don't know what it is. I've been photographing faces for way too long, and it always seems to catch the weirdest light, and it's always the hardest to kind of fix without making look weird and retouched. But we'll try our best. Trial and error, folks. Trial and error. More error than trial. What? What? So anybody out there watching the World Cup? I'm quite happy to say that I really don't mind which team wins now. And I don't know if it makes me sad. Probably. As a Scotsman, I really feel the only other country that has attacked Scotland is England, right? I mean, yeah, we've had other wars and stuff, but like direct attacks on Scottish land, England. So, wasn't sad to see them go out, unfortunately. And don't you think that I'm the only person that thinks like this? Now, my mum is one of the kindest, nicest human beings on earth, and she was actually indifferent to who won the game. So, if you're a Scotsman that wanted England to win, Scotsman, geez, if you're Scottish and you wanted England to win, we should talk about it, because I would like to have thought like you, but I just couldn't. All right, so we're getting here. How much is my blethering, Jacob?
What?
More retouching, less talking.
I mean, sure.
Folks, you're really beginning to, really beginning to see a difference here. I'm going to just hit the chin. Now, so after I've done this, what I'm going to do, after I've done my retouching, I'm going to do color. I always do color on top of retouching. And I always keep them very separate so I can actually retouch under my color. The problem is, if your layers aren't organized and you've not got a good grasp of layers in Photoshop, you can really get to this position where you can't get back to a place you want to be. So as I say, there is a tutorial I did to kind of how to build your layers. Maybe we'll do a live one or something if anybody wants to see it. But it's really, really important to be organized in your Photoshop. Name your layers, that kind of thing. It's, especially if you feel like you want to be going back. Information, this image, the image size, I'm working, let's do pixels. It's a pretty big image. It's 4,994 pixels by 7,500, and that's at 240 resolution. So it's, I mean, I suppose you could call it 8K or just about 8K. That's the raw image that comes out of my Leica SL2. So I have done no sizing or anything yet. It's just pretty much the raw image that comes out of the camera, and it gives an incredible amount of detail. I mean, really incredible amount of detail. So, you know, you gotta work hard to fix all these pixels. All right, it's looking in pretty good for this level, and then we'll probably have to do maybe 2 more levels of of the curve to open it up enough to catch all the skin tone and stuff. But we'll see in a sec. All right. The other thing which I'm beginning to see here, which I usually forget, but I'm not going to do today, is the neck. I'm beginning to see some stuff in the neck, and I'm going to use exact same tools. I'm going to soft light it and just try and even out some of these tones on the neck, because it's just as important. Neck can be hard work. Using soft light to fix tone is a lot easier on areas where there's texture underneath it, whereas this neck is so bokeh'd and soft that it's very obvious when you do anything to it. So if I go in here, you can see some of like my messy brush strokes, but you know what, it will be alright after we finish. So don't get too concerned about that and don't go over the top on it. Alright, so that's where we are in the black and white mode. If we turn that off, that's where we are in the color mode. And that's what we've done. I think that's looking pretty good. We're going to open up to our next area, and I'm sure it's going to show us all this stuff on the right and in here, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to open up a little further on that curve. Now we can see all the stuff that we couldn't see before here and here and on the neck and a little bit on this right side. So once again, just go back in with the soft brush, a soft brush on a soft light layer, painting with a dark and light color. Tapping it out.
Adam Gregory said a live show on layers would be good.
No problem, Adam Gregory. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's, I think I can't remember exactly, but I think Photoshop 3 or 4 gave you layers, which was this. Are you holding your hand up to talk to me?
No, I'm stretching it.
All right. And that was I mean, I don't even know how far back I'm going, but that was a real game changer, because all of a sudden you could separate your work out in a way that literally you weren't starting again if you made a mistake. So layers can seem complicated, but you know what? In a couple of minutes, I'm just going to talk through it. Tomorrow, make me higher. Two of my favorite artists, Freddie Mercury and David Bowie. David Bowie a lot more so than Freddie Mercury, or Queen, but he's really grown on me. Like people better sometimes when they're dead, right, Jake?
What'd you say?
You like people better sometimes when they're dead.
You do. I usually like the living.
I suppose you just pay more attention, I don't know. Yeah, so layers super quick. Let's turn everything off here. I'm going to show you something which, you know, just literally what I'm talking about here. So I've got some color correction layers already that don't do anything, but they're made. So if I go into my curve layer here now, and
Mark, can you just tilt your curved monitor towards the camera a little more? Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. Can you still see?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say that I've decided that I want to make a, you know, oh, what did I just do there? It's weird to get the angle, I'm sorry folks. Okay, so let's just say I want to add a little more curve into this. Okay, just maybe so I can see how my retouching is looking. I can have my retouching on underneath, and I can see exactly what that curve layer is doing, and I can change that curve layer without affecting my retouching underneath. So let's say that you're not 100% sure how you want this image to look. You can actually, you know, work a little bit on your color if you want to, and then do your retouching underneath it. So you're not at this point, it's like, oh God, I don't know how to, you know. So everything is non-destructible. I can turn that curve layer on now. I can turn it off. I can change it. And the same for my retouching. Turn my soft light off. I can see what it looked like without. My cloning layer, which is, you know, the layer we first started with, and the soft lighting, we can turn it on and turn it off and be able to truly work in a non-destructive fashion, always being able to get back to that raw file which is how I brought it in from Camera Raw. So it's really important, and it's not as complicated as it seems, and we can certainly do something or talk about it. But I'm desperate to try and finish up this this self light, because it seems like it's taken a long time. Is it taking a long time, Jake?
Well, for some reason the picture-in-picture guy.
Uh-oh, we lost a picture-in-picture. Hopefully Jacob will fix that. What can you see, Jakey?
I have it on the wide.
So you can't see my screen?
No, you can see the screen.
So what can you see?
Now it's just on the screen.
Well, it looks to me like that camera's off. Did we run out of battery?
No, the camera's on.
Yeah, but it's not on. Now it's on.
Yeah. No, the picture-in-picture froze, like the button froze.
Can we fix it?
I'm working on it.
He's working on it, folks. But you can still see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Hey folks, that's live television for you. I'm
So
sorry.
weird.
I'm sorry, man. Mom, you better be watching. Alright, so we're getting a little nitty gritty in here, but that's what we're going to have to do. What do you think happened, cuz?
Well, it says it's on. I just don't know where it is.
Do we have to call the IT guy? Oh wait. You are the IT guy.
I'm just going to make it really big and see if it takes over the screen.
Alrighty.
No.
Oh, it's gone green now. That light.
What?
The light on the camera is green.
Huh. I didn't know there was a green light there.
I think that means you're broadcasting, doesn't it?
No, red is broadcasting.
I thought red was recording.
Same.
Once again, we're totally open to any ideas how to fix the cameras. So yeah, so I find that when you're in like the
Oh, wait.
this curve here, and you're beginning to really open up, the areas you're seeing sometimes become smaller, and it's more tempting to get into pixel level to fix them. I'm not.
Somehow it's fixed. I don't know how.
Oh, I did that.
Oh, okay.
It was me. It's gone red again.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. So yeah, pixel level. It's up to you folks. I would definitely try it a few times. See if you think that it's diminished returns on your time, or if you love it. I find it's diminished returns, but you know, everybody is looking for something different. And I promise you, with practice, you're going to get super fast at this. Well, when I say super fast, at least this fast. I'm going to give a shout out to someone here, and his name is Joe Girardi, and he is, in my opinion, possibly the best retoucher in the world. I don't know if that's saying a lot, but certainly the best retoucher I've ever... Oh, somebody's at the door. Who could it be? That's exciting. Somebody's at the door.
Thank you. It's our mirror.
Oh, we got a mirror. So Joe Girardi, Q Studios, we shared a studio for many, many, many years. And when I go in retrospect, he drip taught me retouching. Like if you were making some drip coffee, like he would show me something, and then he would, wait about 4 months to show me part 2 of it. So I'd be so, trying so hard to get it to work and make sure it was happening. I couldn't understand why it never quite looked like his did. And it's because he would only show me one part at a time. But in all honesty and all fairness, Joe is pretty much the style and my mentor for retouching, and is a genius at it.
We have another question
Oh yeah.
from, I'm not going to try and figure out how to pronounce that name.
Sure.
Any reason to do dodge and burn on a soft light layer and not on a curves layer?
Yeah, lots of reasons.
Can you repeat the question?
What?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so somebody is asking, why do dodge and burn on a soft light layer and not a curve layer? Now, I'm going to answer that to the best of my ability. A soft light layer is going to work in a certain way where you're not affecting color. You're not affecting structure of the pixels as much as only working on tonality. It's a and I find that if you use, please excuse me for vaping, if you don't use a soft light layer and you just work on a curve layer, then you're going to get a lot more differences in tonality when you're working and a lot more differences in texture when you're working, and I don't really want that. I am using a curve layer. No, I'm not using a curve layer. Listen, once again, there's a billion ways to do things. Soft light layer is going to break the structure up in a way so when you paint with a soft brush and also a very soft sorry, I can't even think, what am I trying to say, opacity, that it doesn't affect the pixels it doesn't affect the structure of the pixels as much as if you're working on a curved layer. So that's the reason to do it on the soft layer. I hope that makes sense. Does that make any sense?
Somewhat.
Try it and see what you think. All right, let's see where we're at. And it's only tobacco, folks, I promise. I'm getting a little micro here, so I'm going to try and work a little further out. On my least favorite area, which is that kind of chin area down. I don't know why that area always seems so tough for me to work on. So, Jake, I want to know more about the date. Where are you going?
To Bianca.
Did you really just tell me where on the live chat where you're going on a date?
Yeah, but I didn't tell you which one.
Oh, I see.
There's 3 or 4 of them.
All right, folks. If there's enough of us, we need to stake out the 4 restaurants.
I'll even tell you the time. 6:30.
We need to stake out the 4 restaurants and get paparazzi style photos, please.
If anyone can find me and take a picture of me at one of these restaurants, you'll get a free photo session with Mark.
Wow! Wow! I'm all in on that. Lifetime supply of free photo sessions.
No, just one.
I like how Jacob gives away free photo sessions. Nice. All right, folks, I'm going to have to get a little more granular in the weeds here than I thought I was going to, but let's see how it looks before I do that. I know that I'm not going to be happy with this here. I'm going to go a little deeper and just try and even it out a bit. As I say, there's many other techniques to do this. Sometimes if genuinely I have a lot of images to retouch, I'm gonna fix some of this stuff with what's it called? Structure? What's that other thing we do? What's it called?
What?
Frequency separation. And
Are you limited?
well, I definitely limit frequency separation, but if I can't get to where I need to be by the time everybody has to go to bed, then maybe we'll do that quickly. But this is moving very fast. The other thing to say is if you're really like tapping and nothing is happening, then you might want to increase your opacity. I don't think 3 is any kind of magic number. 3 seems to work for my images, but certainly go up to 4 or 5 or 6. I think you're going to think, oh, this is better, and then you're going to see that it's moving too fast and you're going too far one way rather than the other. So you're going to come back, but definitely try it. Did I finish on Joe Girardi? Q Studios Inc. Joe is also a real expert on NFTs and creates NFTs and buys and sells them, and there's a real knowledge. And I think Quantum Studios is where you can find out about his NFTs. Anybody else we need to give a shout out to, Jake?
You did your mom already.
Mommy!
My mom?
Jacob's mom, my cousin Bina, who is my favorite American cousin with the first name B, with the first name Bina. Big shout out to her. All right.
What was your photo teacher's name?
My photo teacher. Well, I had 2. I had Mr. Marshall. I had 3 actually. Mr. David Marshall, who is, as far as I understand, living and kicking it back and retired in Ibiza or Spain and paints and makes beautiful paintings. And then there was Mr. McVarish, who I understand passed away. And the other names have gone out of my head. But Davey Marshall introduced me to photography.
Right, let's shout out to him.
Davey Marshall! Alright folks, I'm getting a little granular here. But let's see, so as I say, this is this black and white image. And then if we turn off the black and white, you can see the color and what the self light has done, beginning to see some major changes there. And I think it's beginning to look pretty good. I'm going to have to go one stage further out to correct these harsh lines that I see here and here. But apart from that, we're doing pretty good. I'm not going to go crazy on the chin. I'm going to leave it a little natural. But we're going to go out one stage further on the curves, just to bring, so we can open up that area so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to pull the bottom out a little bit so I can see it. And I'm also going to bring this top over a bit to increase the contrast. And this is what I'm talking about. You can see that kind of harsh line here. I'm going to try soften that up a little bit. And then the same on the other side.
I just got an ad on Instagram for Poland Spring. Do you think it's because they're watching the stream and they saw me hand you a bottle of water?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Poland Spring. Did we just get money?
I wish.
Poland Spring, Poland Spring, Poland Spring.
I don't think it works that way.
It doesn't work that way. Who else do we need an ad from?
Well, Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Just like to say that my favorite drink is Diet Coke. Which I've tried to cut down a little bit on. I hear it's not so good for you. All right. So just softening up that line there. The other thing you're going to see with soft light is you can only go so far. That's why you have to do your pre-work. Because if you go too far, you're going to start seeing the image as grey. The fixed bits as very greys. When you're trying to lighten something, it's just going to look, instead of the color of your image, it's going to look grey. And that's why you can really only go so far. So do as much, as I say, of that pre-work as you can. This is the other area that you can see is like really needs some love. And also when you open up the curve, your image is going to start, each stroke is going to have more effect than when you're closed down and working. When you're closed down into the real, seeing it as very black, which are the actual highlights, is going to move a little slower. So Italian for dinner, Jake.
Yeah.
You don't want to pre-game with some Italian, so you know what you're, getting into, so there's no surprises.
No, I know what I'm having. I already know what I'm gonna eat.
Oh, so you chose this restaurant because it's a dish you like?
Yeah, they have a very good cacio pepe.
Alrighty. So, any dating advice for Jake? Chat is
Someone asked.
Yeah.
Can you please repeat the name? Oh, Joe Girardi. I'll add his info into the chat.
Joe Girardi, Q Studios Inc. As I say, the man that taught me to retouch, much to his chagrin. But let me tell you, he did it very slowly over a period of 5 years. Joe, how do I fix this? What's that command? Poor guy, patience of a saint. All right, so let's go here and look at this under eye a little bit. And let's, try and, once again, we're going to take out a little bit more of this differential in the color, and that should keep the line there, which we don't want to lose, but just soften it up and match it up a little better. All right, what about this guy here? Okay, we can do the same here on this. We can hit it a couple of times. I say we're not trying to get rid of it, because if you get rid of it, then it starts to look plastic and like one of these like alien plastic filters. Which is fine if that's what you're looking for, but if you're looking for to keep it looking like a photograph, then that doesn't really work. Anybody, Jake, have you tried that AI that makes your avatar?
No, I'm too cheap.
Why, how much is it?
It's like $12.
I thought it was like $3.
Maybe I was looking at the wrong one.
Does it work on, I don't have an iPhone, folks, because I use a PC and a Android. Does anybody know if it works on Android? I kind of thought it would be fun to make one and then retouch it. Do you know what I mean?
Do you remember what it's called?
I don't know, but everybody on the planet is making these.
Portraits, right?
I don't think it's called portraits.
No, but that's what they're making.
All right, little. Oops, wrong way. Lighten up a little under here. Let me have a look at where we're at. All right, so there's the black and white image. We're going to have to definitely do a little bit on the neck. And this is our image before any retouching, and this is with our retouching. That's looking that's looking really pretty. As I say, I've kept so much of the integrity of the skin. I've kept the under eyes here. I've kept lines on her face, but what I've done is just smoothed out the tones a little bit. So hopefully if I just turn this on and off, Jake, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, so that was an hour and a half. I'm going to be, in the spirit of all honesty, folks, I would probably spend another half an hour on that. I'm just going to do the neck because that's going to bug me. And then we'll move on to a little bit of color. We'll take a 2-minute break so I can drink some water, and then we'll move on to color. Actually, I'm going to drink some water now.
It's called Lensa AI. The app is free, but to receive the images, it's $7.99 a month.
Can't do a trial. Just some nicotine, folks, and I'll get back to it.
I'm sure you can. It's on the Google Play Store.
Oh, it is? The other thing to say is I'm taking like a minute here. Stop every half an hour or so. You know, drive yourself nuts and your eyes will go crazy. All right, let's get back to it. Back to soft light. Just going to try and hit a little of these neck areas, and you know, as I said before, anything which is really blurry, which the neck is, partially because of my lack of focus, but also mainly because of this shot was shot wide open. And I'm just any of the major kind of weird imperfections trying to get rid of. Oh, we should have done a screen record so we could have speeded it up. Cause
Yeah, that would have been smart.
next time.
I knew we needed OBS open for something.
Yeah.
But the waves do great.
Yeah, so I should talk about that a little bit. I know we can't really see the setup, but what the Wave has allowed us to do is not have another computer on set and not have to actually live stream from my computer. We've got HDMI out of my computer, and we've got everything plugged into an ATEM Mini, and we're actually live streaming through the Teradek Wave. Has that made it easier, Jake?
Yeah.
Jake, why has it made it easier?
Because my computer is free as well.
Yeah, so we didn't have to tie up a whole computer, which is what's really great about it. We made a little video about it if you want to check it out. Teradek Wave. Oh yeah, that's a great video monitor. I have no idea. I can't. I've got it facing Jacob, so I can't see anything. How have my retouching faces been?
You want to give us like a sample? Yeah, there you go.
I think they're a lot better since I got new glasses, personally. So, to cut a long story short, I have these. I don't really like computer glasses very much, so I have these glasses that go from like long distance to close up, and for some reason I think I have to push them up with my cheeks when I'm looking up. It makes some very strange faces. All right, I'm nearly there. Let's have a look. Turn that off. Yeah, I'm thinking this is looking very good. Sorry, let's make it a bit bigger. Once again, I'm just going to turn all the retouching on and off, and you can see even the neck feels a little softer and more blended. I could certainly go back in there a bit more. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to darken some of these areas up in this hairline a little bit. I don't want to really get into this hairline and make it perfect, because that's not how it is, but I think we could just, if we turn on our curves again, we just slide back down to a slightly darker curve. You can see that we could just darken some of these areas a little bit, and that will smooth that out a bit. That was the wrong brush, that was a lightening brush. Now we're on a darkening brush. This might be too much.
Shout out to David Bowie's estate and hope that they don't demonetize us.
I'm not doing that. Yeah, so that helped a little bit, you know, it just, if we just take the soft light off, we can see that. My mic died?
Yeah. No, it's back on.
Is that better?
Yeah.
You can hear me? I'm not sure why my mic died. Oh, so let's talk about a couple of things here before we move on to color. And it's a bit more about these layers that I've been talking about. I've been working, I mean, we didn't do any liquify, I'm just going to lose that layer, but I've been working with my retouching on these two layers here, the clothing that we did to start, and then the soft light. Now, I've done pretty much all the soft light I'm going to do, but I have to actually take this nose ring out. And this is interesting because you don't want to clone on a soft light layer. So we're going to make a new layer on top of that layer, and we're going to call it clone 2 if you like. So this way I can actually clone from everything I've done before, and I'm going to try it with my favorite tool, which is the healing brush. I'm just going to see if I can pop it out that way. Not bad. So, not bad. I could knit away at that for a second, see if we get rid of it completely. Why does it look like it's still there even when it's not still there? Let me see. Huh. It's weird when you take something out like that, sometimes it shows you an imperfection you didn't see. Now what's a little bit annoying about having forgotten to do that is I'd like to do a tiny little bit more soft light where it was, but I can't go back and do it underneath my new cloning layer, so I'm going to create another new layer, and I'm going to make it orange, because my soft light layers are orange, and then I'm going to make it a soft light layer, which is here. Okay, I'm going to call it SL2. I turn my curves back on. I'm going to look at that little area. And then I'm just going to fix that with this SL2 layer. So now I'm working on a new soft light layer. It's not ideal, but I think when you start, you might find yourself working with building up some layers and not getting it all done in one or two. And it's not a bad thing to build up, because you can always like, oh, okay, I want to go back. I'm just gonna delete that layer and try it again, and you're not deleting a whole layer that you've been, a whole image that you've been working on for hours. But we should definitely do a little bit more on building up these layers. I think that looks better. Yeah, it looks like it's gone now. Turn off my retouching. There we go. So that's pretty much a me place where I would probably start my color correction. The one thing I'm going to do, as I say, I don't want to rush, but I do want to do this, is I want to soften the lips a little bit. And I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to make a layer here. And as I say, you don't have to make a layer for everything, but I know that the only thing I'm going to do on this is lips. So I'm going to call that layer lips. And how I'm going to do that, there's many ways of doing it. I'm just going to do my cloning tool, and I'm going to be at maybe 10%. And I'm just going to tap it out. I'm going to clone from here where it's kind of pink and rich, and I'm just going to tap on some of these creases, even from beside it there. I'm just going to try and soften some of these creases. For some reason, I'm not sure if that's working. Let me go to 100%. Yeah, it's working. It's just taking time. All right, so back to 10%. Looks really rich. It'll do nicely. It's looking nice. I don't feel it's over retouched. I still think Brianna looks like a human being, and she looks stunning. I'm going to show you this super quick, and I don't think Brianna needs it in any way, shape, or form, and I should certainly have done it at the beginning of this because now I'm making a decision on something that I can't go back and fix afterwards. I'm going to do a little tiny bit of liquifying to show you how I would liquify. This is not something I would do on Brianna because she doesn't need it, but just to show you in case you want to do it. And really you should do it as your first layer and all your retouching above it. I'm talking about reality of real world, that you say send this finished picture off to your client and they go, you know what, can you liquify this? This is how you'd have to do it instead of doing it from the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection here, and I'm going to use a Control or Command Shift C. I'm going to copy what's in the box. I'm going to Command Shift V and paste what's in the box to a new layer. Alright, and then that layer I'm going to open in Liquify. Okay, let's make this a little bigger. Oops, too big. There we go. Now what I'm going to do here is, it's a little bump here, and I'm just going to straighten out her her lip here. It's not actually her lip, it's her lipstick, and just move that bump in a tiny little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab the top brush, the squeezy brush. I'm going to set my pressure to like, I don't know, 70%. And then I'm going to take my size down, so the size, I don't really know how to describe how to do the size here. Not big, not small, but this size. And then really slowly and just with gentle little push, I'm just going to push that in so that straightens that line of lipstick. And then on this bottom bit I'm going to do the same thing. Really slowly, I'm just going to push up. Lose a little bit of that bump that's there on the bottom. Super subtle. And once again here where the lipstick's a little bit uneven, you could fix it a little bit with, I would have to use a much smaller brush now. Push that up to even it out. There's other ways you can do this with the cloning tool. I kind of like doing it with a Liquify brush, and that is all I'm going to do, and then I'll show you the difference. Should be subtle. Just looks a little more even. Don't get carried away. So that's Liquify. All right, so let's move on to some color correction. So the first layer I have is a curve layer, which I already kind of messed around with. Let me just clear. What do I want to do? I want to increase the contrast a little bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of an S curve. So I'm going to pull down these. I'm going to pull down the shadows, just deepen the shadows a little bit, and open up the highlights. There we go. And once again, the same. There, you can turn this if you want to try it to a luminosity layer, and apparently that only doesn't affect color. I don't know. I think that's worked quite nicely. The other way you can do that is if you keep a normal layer, you can just have a hue and saturation layer and reduce your hue and saturation a little bit to make up for the contrast that you've put in the curve. So not mad at that at all, kind of like it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to whiten the eyes. And this is with the quick mask. So we have a whole, I definitely know we have a tutorial on quick mask, but basically I'm going to use a brush and my opacity is gonna be like 20%. I'm just super quickly gonna paint in. I'm not going for crazy accuracy here. It's a soft brush at about 20%, and I'm just gonna paint in the eyes of her whites of her eyes on a quick mask. I'm going to come out a quick mask and make it a curve, and then I'm just going to lighten this ever so slightly. Those her eyes are pretty white. Let's go out a little bit. I mean, you can see like crazy, but if we just go back to where it was and then just slightly lift the white, we're in good shape. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to desaturate, and the reason I'm going to desaturate is because in the eyes we have some red and some pink, we all do, okay? Once again, I'm not trying to get rid of it completely, so I'm going to make a new hue and saturation layer, and by using this button here, it's going to attach that hue and saturation layer to the curve layer. So it's only going to work on where that curve is. And I'm just going to reduce saturation. So if I go in close here, and I turn that on and off, we can see we've taken out a little of the red saturation in her eye, and lightened it slightly, and I think that is more than enough, which looks great. Let's talk about some quick masks that we can do here. So I'd like to bring out a little more detail on the hair. I'm going to do a quick mask on the hair. Once again, 10%, 20%, and I'm just going to paint in slightly over here, a little bit. Nothing accurate. I'm going to come out to Q and do a new layer, and I'm going to lighten that. And there we can see we're slightly bringing up some detail in her hair. And we don't want to go too far because we don't want it to look grey, but just a slight punch up. So we've gone from here to here. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feather it. So I'm going to click on the curve that we've just made, and I'm just going to feather that out a little bit. Well, I say a little bit, fair amount. And that feather is just going to add that little bit more into the detail of the hair. Spread it out a little bit and make it a little more natural. And this to me is beginning to look lovely. Now the other thing which I'm noticing straight away, and you're going to see it, I see it quite often with makeup, is that the neck is a slightly different color than the face. And it just happens. So I'm going to fix it again with another quick mask. I'm not too worried about running into that red sweater. I can certainly come out and like fix it, but I want to get most of the neck. And again, you can see that I'm not like doing crazy accurate because I'm not making big drastic moves that are going to be really obvious. So I don't have to make these masks, you know, incredibly tight. If you're doing still life or something, you know, you're going to have to work a lot harder on your masks than I'm doing here. So once I've made that mask, I'm going to make it a curve layer again. And there's a couple of things I'm going to try. If I look at her skin definitely looks a little redder. So I'm going to go into this, the red channel on my layer. You see if I pull it down we get way more green. And if I lift it up a little bit, I'm beginning to bring that red tone back in. So it's matching her face a tiny little bit as well. And then I presume if I go to the blue and add a little more yellow, because the opposite of blue is yellow, then we can really begin to match her neck to her face. So if I turn that on and off, and I think that makes a really big difference. Once again, not crazy accurate masks or anything, but just enough to kind of bring out take the difference away. What else would I do? Something you can always try. I like to bring out eyes a little bit. I'm going to go into my quick mask again. I'm going to do 20%, and I'm just going to do two big brushes, soft brushes, but right in the center of each eye. I'm going to quick it out. I'm going to make it curve, and then like obviously if I go here it's going to start looking crazy, but if I just lift that tiny little bit really subtly, it just lifts the eyes, which I think is really pretty. That's where we are. I think this is looking really good. I think it could go with a little more contrast. So I'm just going to just pull down these blacks a little bit, make it a little tiny bit richer. Gone too far. There we go. Alright, color's beginning to look really nice. I still feel I want to see a little more here. So I'm going to use, I think I need to see some more here and here. So I just make another new curve. I need more quick mask. Oops, that's the wrong tool. Say 10%. Yeah, tap in a little here. See if I can bring anything out here without making it look all gray. Come out quick mask, new layer. Oh, there you go. And that definitely brings that out here. The other thing is, if you feel that your forehead is just, too bright, once again, use a quick mask. Maybe do a tap at like 10% of brush opacity right in the middle, where you feel it's too bright. Cue, curve. Now you can just bring that down a little bit. As I say, I'm not making any drastic moves here. That's why nothing has to be that crazy accurate, because you're working like in bigger areas. Listen, I think this looks great. I can definitely see where I would make some changes. I think I would do super quick. I'm going to darken this area a little bit and do it with another mask. Just darken that down a bit, give it a little more three-dimensional feel. Okay, so the last thing I do is I'm going to do some sharpening. I'm going to sharpen the eyes a little bit, and I'm going to do use an unsharp mask. You guys should look that up. Oh, sorry, I'm going to use a high pass with a layer mask for sharpening. I'm not going to go into what it is, but this is how I sharpen. I can certainly go into it another time if anybody's interested. And the only place I'm going to sharpen, I mean, you can sharpen all different ways. The only place I'm going to sharpen is just literally this eyeball and some of these eyelashes. And that will give a little more focus into the eyes. Now I feel it's too dark. See, this is the point, this is where it gets really weird, because like, when are you done with this image? When is this image finished? I feel it's a little dark. I feel I went a little heavy on that curve. There we go. Alright folks, so that is pretty much how I would retouch this image, and it's done. Once again, I suppose if I was sitting here by myself watching a show, not talking, I may have spent a little more. And now I look back at it, I think it's a little saturated, so I'm just going to take a little of the saturation out. I have a huge saturation layer. There we go. I'll look back at it in 10 seconds and see something different I'd like to change. But yeah, I'll see something else here. This is a problem. It's never ending. I'm gonna do another layer mask. I'm just gonna lighten the mouth, the bottom of the nose, and that chin. I'm gonna do it with one click on this brush. 10%. Two clicks. Turn it into curve layer. And just lighten that. There we go. So that was pretty subtle change, but I really feel it's opened up the image a bit. So yeah, that's the question. When is it finished? And the answer is never. But you know, there has to be a time. Let me show you all the things I did. I'm just going to turn them on super quick. So we started off with this raw image that looks like this, and then we did retouching, which took it to here. And we did retouching, we did some cloning and some soft light, and then we did color correction that took it to there. And we did that with a series of quick masks and curves. And the only other thing I did is I sharpened the eyes a little bit, which are out of focus. So that's it. I'm exhausted. I hope that was interesting. Reach out, ask any questions you like. Thank you all for tuning in. Happy holidays. And is that it, Jake?
Yeah.
See you next time. Bye.